Oliver Tree has reportedly died after two helicopters collided mid-air over Rio de Janeiro, Brazil on June 14, 2026. The 32-year-old musician spent years building a career around chaos, fake retirements, outrageous stunts, and songs about heartbreak, self-destruction, and disaster. This time, however, the catastrophe was very real. The helicopters crashed into an electric vehicle storage yard, where the wreckage ignited a massive fire that spread to at least 20 cars. All 6 people on board the aircraft were killed. Videos appearing to show the collision and aftermath have begun circulating online, with many outlets declining to share the footage because of its graphic nature. Oliver released a new album just a few weeks ago and was in the middle of a world tour. Best known for viral hits like Life Goes On and Miss You, he died just 2 weeks before his 33rd birthday as investigators worked to determine what caused the tragic collision. In Maryland Heights, Missouri, 28-year-old Danielle Uskovich was attending the Point Fest Rock Festival when she was accidentally kicked in the head by a crowd surfer during a performance by the band Sleep Theory. At first, she thought she had only suffered a minor injury, but days later she developed severe headaches and was rushed to the hospital where doctors discovered a brain bleed. Danielle subsequently suffered 2 strokes, underwent emergency surgery to remove multiple blood clots and a large amount of blood from her skull, and was placed into a medically induced coma. Despite doctors' efforts, she died 10 days after the incident, just months before her planned wedding. In Poland, a 35-year-old man was recently rushed to the hospital after using an axe to sever part of his own genitals in what he reportedly described as an attempt to eliminate his sexual urges. Emergency responders found him suffering from catastrophic blood loss, and surgeons spent hours performing emergency reconstructive surgery to save his life. Doctors later said the injury carried a high risk of fatal hemorrhaging and permanent complications. This was the moment 21-year-old Maria de Freitas was thrown off a 130-foot bridge without being attached to the safety ropes during a bungee jump in Brazil. Video from the scene shows the cord still lying on the platform after she had already gone over the edge, while onlookers can be heard reacting in horror as the mistake became apparent. The psychology student plunged onto the rocky ground below and was pronounced dead at the scene. Authorities later alleged that several operators fled instead of remaining to assist, with reports claiming some even changed their clothes before being tracked down by police. Authorities ultimately concluded that Maria had been launched without a safety connection and eventually arrested the 3 men involved in the operation. The tragedy drew national attention across Brazil and around the world, and many people were shaken to discover that Maria's final Instagram post reportedly included the message, "Life is short, don't waste time." What should have been an exhilarating bungee jump instead became a fatal fall, caused by a silly mistake that investigators said was entirely preventable. This was the incredible moment thousands of soccer fans turned an entire city blood red. After one of Algeria's biggest soccer clubs celebrated a major victory, supporters coordinated online and agreed to ignite flares at the exact same time across Algiers. Within seconds, thousands of red lights erupted across the skyline, creating a scene that looked more like a war zone than a sports celebration. The display was so extreme that videos of it later spread online as supposed missile attacks. In reality, it was a massive fan-organized celebration that transformed the night sky into one of the most surreal sports scenes ever captured on camera. Here's some amazing footage of the deepest fish ever captured on camera. Scientists filmed these snailfish more than 5 miles beneath the ocean's surface, making it one of the deepest vertebrates ever recorded alive. At that depth, the pressure exceeds 800 times the air pressure at sea level, enough to instantly turn an unprotected human into mush. For decades, many researchers doubted that fish could survive so far down, yet this strange translucent creature spends its entire life in an environment so extreme that almost nothing else on Earth can survive there. For more than 50 years, this man kept a secret so unbelievable that even his own family had no idea who he really was. In 1969, 20-year-old bank teller Ted Conrad stole $215,000 from a bank in Cleveland, equivalent to nearly $2 million today, and simply disappeared without a trace. The FBI spent more than 50 years pursuing leads, making the case one of the longest-running fugitive investigations in U.S. history. But Conrad successfully built an entire new life near Boston under the name Thomas Randell. He eventually married, raised a daughter, became a golf enthusiast, and lived as an ordinary suburban family man while investigators remained unaware of his whereabouts. But in 2021, while dying of lung cancer, he finally admitted to his daughter that he was one of America's most wanted fugitives and begged her to keep it secret. Months after his death, investigators used old documents and genealogy records to confirm his identity, finally closing the case 52 years after the theft. His daughter later revealed the story to the world through a podcast about her father's hidden past. Here's a video showing exactly what not to do during a grease fire. I don't know if this is a moment of true horror or true stupidity.
Turn it off! Turn it, what the fuck? What do I do? Bro, turn it off! Turn it off! Tanner, hurry up! Tanner, turn it off! Tanner, turn it off! I don't know what to do! Grab it! Grab it! Grab it! Tanner! Grab it! Tanner! Oh my god, Tanner! What is it? Tanner! What is it? Oh my god, Tanner! I don't know what it is! Grab this!
Instead of standing around like deer in headlights while the fire kept growing, the solution here was actually pretty simple. The obvious first move should have been turning the burner off immediately. As long as the heat stays on, the flames keep feeding. Immediately after that, they should have grabbed a larger pot, a metal lid, or even a baking tray and covered the pan completely. No oxygen means no fire. You don't throw water on it, you don't move it, and you definitely don't dump it across the kitchen. What ends up happening works out purely by luck, not because it was smart. Dumping a burning pan can spread flaming oil everywhere, and that's usually how small kitchen fires turn into house fires. Grease fires look chaotic, but the solution is simple. Kill the heat, cover it, leave it alone.
So I got my katana.
It doesn't get easier to watch. Oh, that's a tough watch. That was when Twitch streamer Biscuit suffered a sudden severe injury live on stream after her katana slipped from its sheath. As the blade fell toward the floor, she instinctively tried to grab it, and it sliced into her hand, severing 2 tendons. She ended the stream almost immediately as she was taken to the emergency room.
I need to cut stream. I have to go to ER. I think I f***ed my fingers.
Hours later, the streamer posted an update from the hospital showing her arm heavily bandaged and immobilized. Tendon damage often requires surgery and long rehabilitation, with no guarantee of full strength or mobility ever returning. Juan Fernando Hermosa is considered the youngest serial killer in Ecuadorian history. Between 1991 and 1992, Hermosa murdered at least 22 people when he was just 15 years old, targeting taxi drivers and stealing their vehicles. But because he was a minor at the time of the killing, Ecuadorian law capped his sentence at 4 years regardless of the number of victims, and Hermosa was released after serving the maximum juvenile sentence. Almost immediately after his release, he was kidnapped, tortured, and murdered as an act of vigilante revenge connected to his heinous crimes. Here's a photo of Magda Goebbels with her 6 children, taken sometime before all 6 would be murdered by their own parents as Nazi Germany collapsed. Their father, Joseph Goebbels, wasn't just a high-ranking Nazi, but the architect of the regime's propaganda machine, a man responsible for saturating Germany with anti-Semitic hatred, glorifying mass murder, justifying the Holocaust, and convincing millions that extermination and total war were moral duties. He publicly called for the annihilation of Jews, celebrated civilian deaths, and demanded Germans to fight to extinction rather than surrender, even as cities burned and children starved. As Soviet forces closed in on Berlin in May of 1945, Goebbels remained fanatically loyal to Hitler, retreating with his family into the Führer bunker. There, Magda decided that her children could not live in a world without Nazism, poisoning each of them with cyanide as they slept. Afterward, Joseph and Magda reportedly took their own lives as Berlin fell and the Third Reich collapsed around them. Here's a friendly reminder of why you should always lock your doors no matter what. This disturbing Ring camera footage shows a disheveled woman wearing a white dress wandering through a residential stairway in the middle of the night while holding a knife in her mouth. She paces back and forth, systematically trying apartment doors, stopping at each one to see if it's unlocked. When she realizes they're locked, she bends down and checks under the doormats, clearly searching for hidden spare keys before moving on to the next door. She even stares directly into the camera while moving from door to door, seemingly unaware or unconcerned by how terrifying she looks. Still armed, she walks up the stairs to another floor and continues scanning hallways, before reportedly lingering outside more apartments as the video cuts off. Her appearance, combined with the fact that she was half-dressed and carrying a knife in her mouth, made many people fear that she wasn't simply trespassing, but was potentially on drugs or mentally ill while actively looking for someone to hurt, showing how close a single unlocked door can come to turning into something far worse. Sao Paulo, Brazil, 1990. A botched robbery leads to a hostage situation, resulting in a tense standoff with police. The would-be thief brandishly holds a gun against the head of his terrified captive as the scene quickly draws a crowd. The standoff continues for more than 2 hours as authorities desperately contemplate how to handle the situation. Then suddenly, local police hatch a daring plan. An undercover police sergeant holding a camera poses as a reporter, and in a split second he seizes control of the weapon before other officers are able to rush in. The hostage was rescued completely unharmed while the suspect was taken into custody. This is why you should never wear AirPods while wandering around a train station. This Turkish woman was a split second from being clapped by a passing train if it wasn't for a rail worker pulling her away just in time. She very easily could have been pulled under the tram and suffered a serious leg injury or worse. This man was taking a casual stroll in Nepal when he was suddenly met by something shocking: a massive rhino chasing him down. While attacks like this are rare, rhinos are responsible for an estimated 2 to 3 human deaths each year, usually when people unknowingly wander too close or startle them. Known for their poor eyesight but extremely sharp hearing and smell, rhinos can charge at speeds of up to 30 miles per hour, leaving almost no time to react once they lock onto a target. The fate of the man in this video is unknown. This photo was taken at the exact moment a phone began shutting down because of low battery. As the device lost power, the camera glitched mid-processing and partially corrupted the image, creating a distorted frame that looks more like a horror game render than a real photograph. This young snow leopard was caught reacting to the sound of a hidden camera trap deep in the mountains. The first image shows the rare predator calmly staring into the lens, but seconds later it appeared to snarl after hearing the camera click. Snow leopards are so elusive they're often called the ghosts of the mountains, and many researchers spend years studying them without ever seeing one in person. Lahaina Noon is a rare solar event where an entire city briefly loses its shadows, making the world look like a video game before everything renders. It happens twice a year in tropical regions like Hawaii, when the sun passes directly overhead at a perfect 90-degree angle, so buildings, objects, and people appear eerily flat as if reality itself hasn't fully rendered yet. Fishermen off the coast of Costa Rica caught something scientists had never documented before: an orange nurse shark. Researchers later confirmed the shark had an extremely rare pigmentation condition called xanthism, combined with traits of albinism, giving it its bright yellow-orange color. Nurse sharks normally rely on dark brown skin to camouflage against the sea floor, making this shark stand out so much that many people initially thought the photos were AI. This was the moment panic spread through a packed subway train after a man suddenly began spraying an unknown substance into the crowded carriage. As the mist spread through the enclosed train car, confused passengers started covering their faces and frantically trying to move away. Though some reports called it an irritant spray, many online viewers speculated that it may have instead been some kind of prank fart spray. The incident reportedly happened aboard a subway train in Guangzhou, China. The man involved was soon detained by authorities after the incident, though his motive remains unclear. This was the moment a German shepherd found himself dangling off the edge of a high apartment balcony after laying too close to the edge and slipping underneath the metal railing. Trapped several stories above the ground, the terrified dog desperately tried to hold himself up using only his front paws as his back legs hung helplessly in the air. With nothing to grip onto to pull himself back up, the dog could do nothing but hang on for dear life. If he lost his grip, the fall could have easily killed him or left him severely injured. But suddenly, the exhausted dog noticed his owner becoming aware of the situation and immediately started wagging his tail. Luckily, the woman rushed over and pulled him to safety just moments before the dog became too tired to hang on. This was the moment when officers found Marvin Morales lying unresponsive on the floor of a station bathroom. A California sheriff's deputy who just overdosed on cocaine he'd stolen from people he arrested, which later tested positive for fentanyl. Deputies had to rush in and administer Narcan to revive him, and he was fired soon afterward. But on December 2nd, 2025, Morales resurfaced in the most horrific way imaginable. That morning, he stabbed his 11-year-old son multiple times inside their own home, while the boy's 6-year-old sister hid nearby, too terrified to move. Deputies who arrived described blood pooled near the entryway, and signs the boy had tried to crawl toward the front door. Morales fled before anyone could reach him, leading to a pursuit down Interstate 5 that ended when spike strips shredded his tires. As the car crashed to a stop, he reportedly drew a weapon, forcing officers who had worked with him in the past to shoot him. Morales died hours later at the hospital, while the sheriff called the crime one of the most devastating his department had ever encountered. This video captures the moment a brown bear emerges from its den after nearly 7 months of hibernation, stepping out pale, scruffy, and visibly disoriented after surviving an entire winter without eating, drinking, or going to the bathroom. During hibernation, a bear's heart rate drops dramatically, its body lives off of stored fat, and its muscles barely weaken despite months of total inactivity. When they finally wake up, they can lose up to 40% of their body weight and often look confused and unstable as their organs slowly restart, making this first walk one of its most vulnerable moments of the year. Here's some extremely rare footage of a deep-sea crowned jellyfish filmed by a drone nearly a mile deep underwater, an animal so seldom seen that most records come from a small handful of deep-sea ROV encounters. With its long pointed tentacles and crown-like shape, it looks more like an alien or deep-sea monster than an animal, drifting through complete darkness under immense pressure. Clear footage of such fragile creatures at this depth is considered highly scientifically valuable because they're so rarely seen alive in their natural environment. After becoming the most famous child star in the world through Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin spent years spiraling out of the spotlight. He became trapped in a bitter legal battle with his parents over control of his fortune, and later admitted to struggling with drugs and heavy drinking, while tabloids became obsessed with photos of his alarmingly thin appearance, constantly pushing rumors that he was addicted to heroin or even close to death, claims he consistently denied. For years, the former child star became more known for looking sick and gaunt than for the blockbuster movies that made him an icon. And in 2017, he met Brenda Song, someone who could relate to his struggles that stemmed from child acting. Over the following years, Culkin appeared significantly healthier and more stable, eventually crediting Brenda and their family life with giving him purpose again. The two later had children together, and during his Hollywood Walk of Fame speech, he told her, "You've given me all my purpose again. You've given me family." In 2004, 3-year-old Riley Fox was taken from her home while her mother was away at a breast cancer fundraiser. Her father, Kevin Fox, had spent the day with Riley and her 6-year-old brother making posters for their mom. That night, after bringing the children home from their grandmother's house, Kevin let them sleep on the couch because their bed sheets were still in the dryer. When Riley was discovered missing the next morning, Kevin initially believed she had wandered to a neighbor's house and searched the area with his son. But later that day, Riley's body was found several miles away near a park, confirming she'd been raped and killed. Investigators quickly fixated on Kevin, repeatedly questioning his young son and isolating Riley's mother while questioning Kevin for roughly 14 hours. He was shown horrific photos of his daughter's murder and eventually coerced into giving a false confession. DNA evidence later proved his innocence and he was released, but the ordeal had already taken its toll on Kevin's mental health. 6 years later, a woman tipped off the FBI about her former boyfriend, already in prison for crimes against a child, who had referenced Riley's case. His DNA eventually matched and he confessed, admitting he had entered the Fox home and killed Riley at a nearby park. Kevin Fox was fully exonerated and won a $9 million lawsuit against the state. The man responsible is now serving life in prison, and according to his confession, Riley's last words were, "I want my daddy." Russian fitness influencer Dmitry Nuyanzin has died after collapsing during a workout, and investigators say his body had been pushed to the absolute breaking point. The 32-year-old had recently been filming a 10,000-calorie bulking challenge while still cutting water for photo shoots and reportedly cycling stimulants and anabolic agents. Friends said he'd been complaining of dizziness and chest pain but kept training to keep up the content. When he collapsed at the gym, doctors couldn't revive him, and the autopsy showed his heart was severely enlarged and overloaded, more like that of a much older man. Experts concluded he suffered sudden cardiac failure triggered by a perfect storm of extreme overeating, chemical strain, dehydration, and relentless overtraining. Nicholas Kunzelman and Stephanie Hart Grizel survived the Columbine shooting in 1999, only to be mysteriously murdered less than a year later. On February 13, 2000, Stephanie went to visit Nicholas while he was closing the Subway restaurant just a mile from their high school. Hours later, an off-duty employee noticed the lights still on, walked in, and saw an unknown young man leaving. Inside, he found both Columbine teens shot to death behind the counter. Nothing was stolen, so it wasn't a robbery, and the witness gave a detailed description of the suspect, but he was never found. Investigators later uncovered a drug ring operation out of that Subway, but there was no link to the teens. To this day, the killer has never been identified. In 2012, a homeless man named Ronald Papa was savagely attacked beneath a Miami overpass in an assault caught on camera lasting 18 minutes. The attacker, Rudy Eugene, beat him unconscious and chewed away most of his face, including an eyeball, leaving Papo permanently disfigured and blind. Police arrived during the attack and fatally shot Eugene when he ignored commands and continued biting his victim. Papo survived after extensive surgeries but was left permanently disfigured. Despite early claims of drug-induced madness, toxicology reports failed to identify any substance that could fully explain the horrific attack.